I moved to Osaka 4 years ago carrying an extra 20 pounds, and I lost every one of them without stepping into a gym once. No cardio machine, no protein shake, no calorie app buzzing on my phone. What happened instead was a 340 square foot kitchen, a rice cooker, and a set of habits nobody in Japan even thinks of as a diet. By the time I noticed, I'd stopped fitting the old version of my own clothes, and the strangest part is nobody here would call any of this weight loss. They'd just call it Tuesday. Here is the part that took me 2 years to actually believe. The average adult in Japan reportedly eats more rice than almost anyone in the developed world. Somewhere north of 100 pounds of it a year by the figures usually cited, and the obesity rate is generally reported at under 5% nationally, a number so low that when I first read it I assumed a typo. Meanwhile, my home country carbs fear its way into keto bars and still can't touch that figure.
So the question isn't whether rice makes you fat. The question is what everyone got backwards. My neighbor Kenji, 71 years old, walks to the fish market every morning at 6 because his refrigerator is the size of a dorm mini fridge and can't hold more than 2 days of food. That's not a lifestyle choice he read about in a magazine. That's just what a small kitchen in a dense city does to a person. He buys what fits, he buys what's fresh, and by the time he's home, he's already logged close to a mile on foot before breakfast. Multiply that by a subway commute, a walk to the train, stairs instead of an elevator because the elevator is one floor and everyone will stare, and you get a baseline of 2 to 3 miles of walking a day that nobody here writes down in a fitness tracker. Nobody logs it because nobody thinks of it as exercise. They just think of it as getting to work. Hara Hachi Bu is a phrase from Okinawa that translates to eating until you're 80% full, and it functions as a real rule at nearly every meal, in portion sizes decided before the food ever reaches the table. A bowl of rice here runs roughly half a cup. A serving of protein sits around the size of a deck of cards. Nobody measures it with a scale. They serve small dishes, several of them, and stop before the plate has done what an American combo meal does in one sitting. I want to be honest about something a lot of videos on this topic skip. Japan is not some miracle nation immune to weight gain. Convenience store fried chicken exists. So does a fast-growing junk food problem among teenagers. And public health researchers here have flagged rising obesity in younger generations, who eat far less traditionally than their grandparents did. There's no magic gene at work. There's a set of daily mechanics that happen to work. And they're eroding exactly where those mechanics disappear, which tells you the food was never the whole story on its own. So what's actually on Kenji's plate? A bowl of miso soup comes first, always first. And it's mostly water and fermented soybean paste, maybe 40 calories. But it fills a third of your stomach before the rice even lands in front of you. Behind it sits a small piece of grilled fish, a pile of pickled vegetables called tsukemono that are salty enough to satisfy a craving in 3 bites, and seaweed that's practically calorie-free but loaded with iodine and fiber that keeps digestion moving. The fermented foods, the miso, the natto, the pickles feed a gut microbiome that a growing stack of research links to lower inflammation and steadier blood sugar, which means fewer of the crash and craving cycles that send you back to the fridge at 10 at night. Drink choice matters more than people give it credit for. Kenji drinks barley tea or green tea with meals, both of them at 0 calories, and the vending machine on his corner sells more unsweetened tea than soda by a wide margin. Compare that to a typical American lunch, where the drink alone can carry 300 or 400 calories before the food even starts, and you're looking at a gap that adds up fast over a year, without anyone noticing it happening. Cooking method quietly does a lot of the work too. Grilling, steaming and simmering dominate a home kitchen here, not frying. A fish gets salted and grilled under a small fish-shaped broiler built into most stoves. Vegetables get simmered in dashi, a stock made from kelp and dried bonito flakes, instead of sautéed in a pool of butter. None of this is a rule anyone follows on purpose. It's just how the stove in a Japanese apartment is built, and how a grandmother taught a mother who taught Kenji's wife, and the calorie difference between a grilled fillet and a fried one is enormous, even when the portion looks identical on the plate. Then there's the sugar question, and this one surprised me the most. The average person in Japan consumes roughly a third of the added sugar that the average American does in a year, according to the figures usually cited by nutrition researchers comparing the two diets. Not because sugar is banned. Convenience stores sell more candy per square foot than anywhere I've lived. But dessert here is a small, seasonal treat. A single mochi, a thin slice of cake shared between 4 people, not a running current of soda and flavored coffee drinks all day long. When you remove that constant drip of liquid sugar, your hunger signals stop getting hijacked every 90 minutes. Portion culture even shows up in how food gets sold. Walk into a Depachica, the basement food hall under any major department store, and you'll find gorgeous displays of food sold in single portions. One piece of sushi, one skewer, one small box of tempura. You're not standing in front of a family-sized bag deciding whether to stop at one handful. The default unit of food here is built for one sitting. And that single design choice removes the decision fatigue that wrecks your willpower by the time dinner rolls around back home. Even a night out follows the same math. Take Kenji to an izakaya, the neighborhood pub where he actually unwinds after work, and nobody orders one giant entree. The table fills up slowly with small plates, grilled skewers, a few pieces of sashimi, a bowl of edamame, shared across everyone at the table and paced out over 2 or 3 hours instead of arriving all at once on a single tray. You eat, you talk, another small plate shows up 20 minutes later, and by the time you'd normally be finishing a Western entree, you're already comfortably full, without ever facing down a portion the size of your own head. The beer helps too, in a strange way. A Japanese beer is usually poured in smaller glasses than an American pint, refilled slowly by whoever's sitting across from you, which stretches out how fast the calories actually arrive. None of this means willpower doesn't matter or that biology gets a pass. Genetics still load the gun. But Kenji isn't fighting his environment 3 times a day, the way someone surrounded by supersized portions and a car-dependent commute has to. His environment is quietly doing the diet for him. And that's the actual secret nobody wants to hear. Because it doesn't sell a 12-week program. The real ingredients are a small kitchen, a walkable city, soup before rice, and a culture that decided decades ago that full means 80%, not 110. Breakfast is where most Western advice gets it completely backwards, chasing a giant protein shake or a bowl of cereal that's basically dessert with milk poured on it. Kenji's breakfast is grilled salmon, a small bowl of rice, miso soup again, and a few slices of pickled radish. It takes maybe 600 calories and keeps him full past noon because it's built from protein and fiber instead of sugar and refined flour. There's no smoothie, no bar wrapped in foil promising 20 grams of protein, just food that was cooked, not manufactured. Even the convenience store plays a different role here than it does back home. A konbini in Japan sells onigiri, rice balls wrapped around a single piece of salmon or pickled plum, usually under 200 calories each, alongside boiled eggs, edamame, and small salads that actually contain vegetables instead of iceberg lettuce and a pile of cheese. It's still processed convenience food, nobody's pretending otherwise. But the default snack culture leans towards small, protein-forward, portioned food, instead of a wall of family-sized chip bags. And when the easy choice is a rice ball instead of a candy bar, the math tilts in your favor, without you ever making a conscious decision about it. Copying this wholesale isn't easy if you live somewhere built around a car and a big box grocery run once a week. I get that. A Depa Chica doesn't exist in most suburbs, and you can't rebuild a train commute out of nothing. But pieces of it travel. A smaller plate changes how much you serve yourself before you've eaten a bite. Soup or a big glass of water before dinner buys you the same 80% signal Kenji gets for free. Walking the long way to your car instead of the close spot isn't nothing when you do it every day for a year instead of once. I spent 2 years assuming my neighbor had some secret I hadn't found yet, some supplement, some fasting window, some rule I was missing. There wasn't one. There was a small kitchen that forced small shopping trips, a stove built for grilling instead of frying, tea instead of soda, and a plate that stopped at 80% because that's just what a plate looks like here. I didn't adopt a diet. I adopted a smaller refrigerator, a walk to the station instead of a car, and a bowl of soup before every meal. And the weight came off over about 14 months without a single trip to a gym. So if you're staring down another program built around discipline you can't sustain past February, maybe the answer was never willpower at all.
Maybe it was always about building a life you don't have to fight against 3 times a day. What would your plate look like if the room around it made the healthy choice the easy one instead of the hard one?